right, so what we're going to do is take a look at the chapter 17 on your book, and I'm going to doing this parallel presentation for you. We're looking at South and Southeast Asia, and you see there on the map highlighted. Looking closer, there are two distinct subcontinents there. The one we're going to look at first is the South Asian subcontinent, and it's India, but it also includes Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, all of which are culturally related, but have different languages and climates and terrains. Their aesthetic and ideologies also interrelate, but have their distinct features for each region, and we'll take a look at that. Here's a shot of the Indus River, and it's part of what was the Indus Valley civilization, one of the three great civilizations, which include ancient Egypt and the Mesopotamian civilizations. This one is considered one of the earliest ones, but the most widespread, because it expanded over to Pakistan, into present-day Pakistan and Afghanistan, and into western and northwestern India. What you're looking at there is the Dholivara site, one of the civilization settlement sites in India, where we see there a series of water storing tanks and step wells, and its water management system. Important to note here is that in these ancient Indus cities, including present-day Pakistan and northwest India, had very sophisticated water supply systems, as well as infrastructure, hydraulic engineering, and sanitation devices that were the first of their kind. I'm showing you here, what I'm showing you are mandalas. So it's a very generic term nowadays. It's often used and understood, but here we see the mandalas of both Hinduism and Buddhism, two of the principal religions that we're going to look at today. A mandala is a term that refers to a sacred diagram of the universe, literally meaning circle. It includes a geometric configuration of symbols with very different applications, and it's a circle encircled within a square. In various spiritual traditions, then, we're looking at the sand square, a sand mandala made out of sand, which is a Buddhist representation on the bottom right, and the two top mandalas are both of the Hindu religion. Interestingly, these, as we've been looking, these visual representations of ideas are also appearing in other cultures and in other times, even up to now. Take a look at this Vitruvian Man that we saw at the beginning of class, the beginning of the semester. It's Leonardo da Vinci's representation of the Vitruvius Man, who was actually an architect from the Roman era, and it's depicting the idea of the proportions of the human figure and how they relate to geometry, so that mathematics and also architecture being related to that. And it's just the shape of and concept also of the mandala there, and it's similar to that. And also look at the Pantheon. There is the building on the top right. It's an ancient Roman temple. The Pantheon means the temple of all gods, which is now a church, but all of it is related to the idea of the square and of the circle. But in this case, since it's in architecture, it's in space, it's a sphere. The circle has become a sphere, and the square is a cube. And all this also is related in that architecture, is related to the idea of the inner world and the outer world. The inner world also being the heavenly world, or the idea of the eye, the enlightenment of the gods. And even the floor you see on the bottom left, it has squares and circles. That's the theme of that building. It's so much like the idea of the mandala. Going forward in time to now, this is a hand drawing by a man named Jason Paget, a Canadian, who has a condition called synesthesia. And he wasn't born this way, but he had a head concussion that was so strong it changed the way he was, from just a normal person to a person who sees in numbers. But he doesn't see numbers per se, but he sees numbers through forms. So the inference here is that is geometry what he's looking at, and he actually sees that. So he sees things in terms of pixels and angles, and this is one of his drawings then. So he can even see his hand, and he'll see a circle instead of the palm of his hand. And when he talks about the circle, he says that, and this can be proven in math, that there's no such thing as a perfect circles, that curves don't exist, but it's just the summation of angles, of pitches, that create a circle. I want to begin by talking about some commonalities between Buddhism and Hinduism, and then we're going to move onward, talking first about Hinduism, later about Buddhism. But it's important to note that in both Hinduism and Buddhism both arise from the tradition based on the Vedas. Vedas, which you see written in the left, are ancient compilations of religious learning. This is a sample that you see in the image, and it's Sanskrit, which is an ancient language. It's interesting because if you look at it, it's like Arabic, but it's not Arabic. It's an Asian sort of writing, but it's not. It could be even Greek, but it's not, or Russian, but it's not. It's got there's many, visually, there's many influences that are actually in reverse. It's these other languages that could possibly have influence with Sanskrit. In both Hinduism and Buddhism, the term samsara is a name that is given to the idea of the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So in both of these religions, they believe in rebirthing, the idea of reincarnation. And in Buddhism and Hinduism have not only common origins, but they share a common space. So I'll show you caves that are right next to each other, and this aesthetic that repeats itself. Let's take a look at that. So we're looking here at the rock-cut temple, the cave temple of Shiva, of the Hindu religion, devoted to a major Hindu god, Shiva, in Western India. The interior is quite impressive because it's, normally one builds constructions, especially in Western culture, you build. And also in the other civilizations, you build on top of something that exists, and here it's kind of building into we are talking about rock-cut temples. And this one was designed with two main axes, one running north and south, the other running east and west. and the entrances provide the only source of light, which is the perfect lighting for something as mysterious as, for instance, any church, any Gothic church. This the term penumbra is almost dark, but still there is enough light for it to be seen, and that has to do with this idea of the mystery, that I believe in something, but I cannot see it. And here's another vista into the corridors. Here we see a huge sculpture, and it's a rock cut relief, because it's not in the round, and it's cut. It's not placed inside, but cut from where it is, similar to the space, the temple in the cave. A key factor here to note is that Hinduism sets itself apart from Buddhism and other world religions, that it has no recognition of a founder or great prophet. So there is with difference with Jesus in Christianity. This Shiva, this god, is conveying multiple heads, that there are 3 heads resting upon broad shoulders and 5 heads, implying a back, a top, that are not depicted, so that they are implied. That's a vocabulary word that means that is not being manifested directly, but that is in between the lines, to put it in a way. This representation embodies the entire universe. It manifests a wide range of aspects, and this god Shiva has many facets, like he's the yoga who meditates. He is the husband, the perfect husband, the cosmic dancer, the creator, the destroyer, and the slayer of demons. And each face shows that. So there is the creator, interestingly, on the back. So we cannot see the creator. The protector on its right side. On the top, the releaser. The destroyer on its left. The obscurer on the front. Interestingly, so when you are sitting down in a yoga position, there is the concept of meditation, which is in both Hinduism and Buddhism, and there is this calmness, and there is this mystery, because there's a stillness inside, and that's the idea that's there with the calmness of the obscurer. According to the Upanishads, the ultimate goal of a person's life is to end the cycle of life and death by merging the self with the force of the universe. So this is a major goal that is part of the Hindu belief. Let's look at Buddhism. Here we see a seal on the left and a sculpture on the right. In both there are 2 figures with the pose, and it's particularly, to begin, the pose on the left is showing the importance of the practice of meditation, which is also on the right, and also, as I said, in both religions, but also in both, we see an aspect of their aesthetic is called a mudra. A mudra is a hand gesture that symbolizes. It can communicate ideas to inform the viewer of the sort of interpretation we should have when we're looking at a sculpture or a particular Buddha or Hindu god. So Buddhism spread into China, Korea, and Japan, so widely spread. We see Buddhas nowadays. We see Buddhas from many different time periods and in many different ways throughout the world. The Buddhist religion developed in Nepal, in northern India, and this was actually from the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived to be 80 years old. This man live different sorts of experiences, one being spiritual, ascetic, that relates to restraint from material aspects of life, but also a spiritual one involved with enlightened understanding, live the materialistic life, in which he then gained a moment of enlightenment, of understanding of reality. And so there's this understanding that this human being becomes an enlightened being through a path of development. And that's the philosophy behind Buddhism. Buddha is not a god, but it is an ideal human being that has reached enlightenment. And the philosophy has to do very much with living in harmony and in unity with the universe, and accepting of all aspects of life, even the conflicting, those painful ones, and being at absolute peace with everything. Here we're looking at the great stupa at Sanchi in India. It's a 3rd century BCE temple, one of the oldest stone structures in India, part of a monastery complex. The stupas are dome-shaped structures, and they can be in many sizes, and they contain in them relics of a holy person. And the reasoning behind that, the implication behind such structure, is that the inner is, again here, the symbolic boundary between the inner is the sacred area, and the outer is the profane meaning the not sacred, of non-biblical world. In the outer world there are many rock-cut figures, feminine figures, and they relate the notion of female to beauty, to fertility, which shouldn't be uncommon to us. That notion of Mother Nature is land as being female, and of course in agriculture female has to be fertile, and there's a sense of abundance and generosity. That is the idea of the outer world is protecting that inner world. There's a center at the middle, and the center is intended to be of stillness and perpetuity, while the outside is to be walked around. Let's take a look at that walking around. A term for that is circumambulation, which is ambulating around, walking around, which is a form of meditation. So meditation not only sitting still, but also walking as a meditation. Let's take a look at this. Listen to the meditation sound, the mantras of monks that are practicing this. Okay, so now we're looking here at a standing Buddha from Gandhara, Pakistan. You can see the representation of robes. They're actually similar to those sculpted from the Greek and Roman worlds. And what this does, on the left you see a frieze, a Roman frieze. And what it does is shows us that there has been an exchange between Eastern and Western sculptures, because there's this influence there that is evident. Gandharan Buddhism, which is a type of Buddhism that also corresponds to a region in Pakistan, corresponds not only to Pakistan but to Afghanistan as well. But we see similarities between another type of Buddhism. And now there are three main sorts of Buddhism that developed. And here we see one of them, which is the Mathura Buddha. And let's take a look at the similarities. They have the bun, which symbolizes enlightenment, the dot, both of them, that third eye of wisdom, the distended earlobes, which recall the past life of Buddha, that life with jewelry, that is a life of a worldly life, and the monk's robes, which infer to the spiritual life led by the Buddha. And the chakras there on the right, Buddha, is symbolize the wheel of life. Very quickly we move on here to the frieze from Gandhara. It's a frieze from Gandhara in Pakistan. It's again showing that influence of Roman reliefs. And the same one is you see at the bottom left. They almost seem like they share the same ideas. And also an interest with those friezes to narrate a certain scene. Both of these are doing that, just that. You're looking at Ellora Cave, which is an UNESCO World Heritage Site, one of the largest rock-cut monastery temple cave complexes in the world, and it also is next to other caves, and they are from different religions, both Hindu and also Buddhist, circa 600 CE, so of the current era. This is a drone recorded image. Well, video, really. Quite fantastic, because from different angles you might see it. It seems like nothing's happening, maybe nothing's there, in the sense that it's just still a landscape. But then suddenly you see, as you get closer, these amazing details, and everything's happening inwards, inside the caves. Also, that these caves were built or were made in different times and different religions. That's quite striking. This is the Ajanta. These are actually the Ajanta caves, because there are 30 approximately rock-cut Buddhist cave monuments which date the 2nd century BCE. This is all located in Western India. This is one of the entrances. And we're looking into one of the corridors. These were frequently home for monks, but also considered holy places. They were living spaces for monks, but also they were sacred shrines. So there were those different functions these caves held. Flanking the entrance of the shrine are murals murals of two bodhisattvas, or saintly beings. These are the murals. Let's take a closer look. There's one bodhisattva, and this other one is more intact. Now, bodhisattva is a person who has restrained themselves from achieving nirvana in order to help others achieve enlightenment. It is a saintly being, as I said, in the stage before becoming a Buddha, considered more noble even in the Mahayana Buddhism. This is the bodhisattva is the principal figure, and it's more noble than the path of being a Buddha because it's that moment of realization when you have the aspiration, that hope, and that is a bigger change than actually achieving something. And the bodhisattva here is represented normally in rich clothing, jewelry, with long hair. This is a man we're talking about, and adored with prince crowns. Also notice the size, much bigger than the smaller figures represented in the background. That also speaks to that spiritual power, and that's also that common trait that we've been talking about, the hierarchic scale. Most Buddha images throughout Asia have one of three postures: standing, sitting, or lying down. A reclining Buddha here is what we're looking at, represents that Buddha in the last stage of this, his last illness, the moment of dying. It's a huge, you can see the scale, a huge scale from the sign in the foreground. Quite unbelievable, and how it's so thoughtful to the landscape. It's well thought out. It couldn't be any other way. But this is a very different representation. It's from Thailand, which produced a distinctive way of representing the Buddha, showing him walking. You see there the left hand in a gesture of reassurance. This is termed Abhayu Mudra. You don't need to remember that, by the way. Just want you to know the end where it says mudra, so it's that hand that has that sort of gesture. Looking at architecture in Indonesia, and particularly Buddha, one of the main buildings, one of the most important, because it's the world's largest Buddhist temple, it's the Buddhist temple of Borobudur, built on top in the form of a sacred mountain. It's turned a natural hill into a temple of 6 square platforms and 3 on top of that, all oriented according to the cardinal directions: north, south, east, west. Let's take a look at this video. is Basawan and Chaturmuni, Akbar, and the elephant, Hawaii. Let's take a closer look. It's the scene of a royal elephant hunt, where we see in the middle section here, it's the Mughal Emperor Akbar, that's his name, has mounted Hawaii, an elephant known for its wild and uncontrollable disposition, to fight the equally fierce elephant Ranbaga, who leads them on a wild chase across the river. Take a look at the bottom. Several nearby men scramble to get out of the way, clinging to the edges of their boat or leaping into the water for safety. So it's a whole story that is showing us. And take a look at this. On the left, Flemish painter Peter Bruegel the Elder is known for his busy tableaus and series of tableaus of 16th century Netherlandish peasants. And that's where we see evidence of this influence from the bird's eye view, from the crowded images, and the several instances, almost like a movie could be shown, like the whole animation there in the left and right images are shown in just one picture, all at once, all at the same time, and we have to be careful to take a look, zoom in close and take a look at each part, so beautifully rendered. I'm going to leave you here at the last image that is shown on your book, on this chapter. It's of the Taj Mahal. And I will not leave it here, just for you to know that the Taj Mahal is actually an Islamic temple. And interestingly, but it is in India. So since I'm making more emphasis in the ideas, I am going to place and talk about this when we get to the chapter in Islamic art. But just wanting to let you know that this religion also weaves into the space of not only India, but many other countries. So Islamic art is wide, it's also a very widely expanded religion that has gonna seep in its aesthetics in other cultures and places, regions of the world.